It's hard to believe that almost 50 years ago, I was in this same spot exactly. It wasn't an office then. It was just a little apartment, a little one-room apartment. There was a little bed here and not much else. And I was living alone because just 3 months before, my first wife that I'd married in college had left me and had fallen for a really good friend of mine. There was no adultery involved, there was no porn or alcohol or any of the somewhat typical scenarios, but he was a better man. And I wasn't the kind of spiritual leader I needed to be with her. I've never felt blame or fault towards either one of them, but it was here that I was about to fall apart. I had just finished the spring training coaching the Texas Aggies in football and had come up here to Kanakuk to get ready for summer. And it was here that I dropped to my knees. In fact, it was on this very spot here where I dropped to my knees. And I pleaded with God for my emotional life. I was crumbling. I was literally falling to pieces. And I had an incredible dream, vision, I don't know what to call it, except it was very real to me. And God painted a picture in my mind that night as I was sat there on my knees, and He gave me a picture of a great big white pasture. And I'll never forget it. It was like I was here yesterday, even though it was almost 50 years ago. In this big pasture, there was an 8-strand barbed wire fence, one of those high fences you see in the state of Texas that keeps the game from going from one pasture to the other. And on one side, He put a big sign that said, this is God's pasture. And on the other side, He put a sign that said, this is mine. And one by one, He began to call out all the things that were crushing me. One of the things that were crushing me was my wife's future. I was concerned about what would happen to her in the future. I was worried. You know, obviously she was my wife for 14 months, so I was very much in love. And then I was being crushed by just my failures, which were many. I was being crushed by my worries about my future. Would I ever be in love again? Would I even know what love is again? Would I ever heal? Would I ever recover? I had a friend involved that they had fallen in love with each other, and I worried about him. I was worrying about everything, it seemed like, and all the worry was leading to incredible stress. And one by one, God called me out on those issues I was worried about, fearful of. And he said to me very firmly, whose are those? Whose responsibility is her future? And I said, yours. And he said, well, put it over here. And I did. And then he asked me about the next issue I was worried about, fearful of. He said, whose is it? And I said, yours. And he said, well, put it over here. And as he called out all these things that I was fearful of and worried about, I looked and I saw there was nothing on my side of the pasture. I'd given them all to Him. And then I said, what's left for me? And if you're going through some kind of a crushing experience, something that's breaking your heart today, I think you can relate. If somebody's hurt you in your past. I said, what's left for me? And he said, sadness. And so I put sadness over here on my side. There was nothing left but sadness. And he said very lovingly, but I'll be with you in your sadness. And then he put these no trespassing signs on the fence, these large no trespassing signs that said, don't go across here. Don't cross this fence. This belongs to me. Don't ever come over here and touch it again. And I agreed that I wouldn't. And I felt, as I went through this exercise with him, I felt these gigantic big hands coming out of heaven, lifting up this massive barbell off my shoulders. It had big 45-pound weights on each end. And he lifted it off. And it never came back again. And I stood up off my knees on this very spot, and I was healed. I began to live again. A few months after that, I began to date again one incredible girl from Southern Methodist University that had cheered for the football team I played on. Her name was Debbie Jo. And God allowed me to fall in love again because bitterness was gone, hatred was gone, although I never was bitter actually, I never did hate, but everything associated with my pain was gone. And I was free to cry. But I didn't have to die. I've walked through this with countless people over the years, and they've been healed as well. And I hope it will help you too.